What is that from?
It's from High School Musical when they do the warm-ups.
And it's
actual
not from High School Musical.
No, it is.
I've never seen that movie.
Oh, yeah. Ashley Tisdale's character. They do it. They go, ma, ma.
It must just be a theater thing, too.
Yeah, no, it definitely. Okay. But also, it's vocal warm-ups for people. Like, they go, and they just get higher and higher. Yeah. That's going to be the intro. Hey guys, welcome back. We're here for another episode of Magnolia House.
After however long.
Yeah, after about 3 weeks.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, we're back. We're back in business. I got back on Monday?
It was like,
has it been a week?
It was last week, I think you got
It was last Monday, so there's no way I've been back 10 days. Except 9 days. There's no way.
Yeah, because, it's been a week.
Did I get back on a Monday? Do you know what day I got back?
You got back on like a Tuesday?
Yeah, Tuesday. We left on a Monday. It fucking took 24 hours. Yeah. It was such a bitch.
Well, you had a layover.
Yeah, okay. So this trip has been plagued by delays and canceled flights. And so getting there, we had 3 canceled flights. And then my bitch-ass cousins, I'm calling you out. I know you're not watching this. They fucking canceled. And so one of my cousins is a fluent Spanish speaker, and she was kind of always the buffer when I'm in El Salvador the last time I went, because she speaks Spanish, so she kind of was my personal translator. And so she bailed the last second. She was like, oh, they're canceling flights, it must be dangerous to fly right now, also the Delta variant is going around, and bitch, that trip went perfectly. So doom on you for canceling what was an amazing experience.
I think you can just let them feel bad for not going and the wealth of experience that you got while you were there.
Yes.
And it sounded really cool. Honestly, I was like, man, I wish I was there.
It was a dream, but not having a translator there. So me and my grandma leave to the airport, and there's just delay after delay, and we're moving gates and bouncing around. And then one of our flights, a fucking anti-masker family, a family of anti-maskers. Right. And it's like, bro, what the fuck are you doing? You know you're getting on a flight. Right. You know, because there are speaker announcements that say, refusing to wear a mask is a federal offense. Refusing to wear a mask in an airport is a federal offense. And you could be whatever. And this bitch-ass family gets on our plane and refuses to wear a mask, delays our flight by 30 minutes, and then our next flight to El Salvador, we missed by 10 minutes. And so we had to stay overnight because of that bitch-ass family refusing to wear their mask.
I don't get how they got onto the plane.
I don't know either.
Because what it sounds like is they wore the mask to get through security and then wanted to make a point on the plane by taking off their mask, being like, we're this far, you're going to really it's like they played a game of chicken, like, you're really not going to let us fly now that we're on the plane without masks?
And how much of a baby are you? And you know what they kept saying? Shame on United. Shame on you. Shame. And it's like, are we in a fucking episode of Game of Thrones right now?
You know, I kind of hate the, adopting that one scene from Game of that shame scene. Yeah. Everybody, no matter what your beliefs are, just adopted that. Yeah. But also I think it's a leftist thing to adopt the whole Handmaid's Tale garb.
I never seen that.
There's people who dress up in protest as the Handmaid's Tale women. And I don't know anything about the Handmaid's Tale. I'm gonna say that. Yeah. But it just feels like, if you have something to say, just say it or do it. Don't somehow co-opt this weird ass
and I think
shit.
I've never seen people doing that, but it feels like they're trying to make themselves feel special and stand out-ish and be like, we're making a point.
Well, it's how is that adding more weight to what you're doing?
Yeah, but the shame segment of the Game of Thrones episode, I think that was a real thing that probably happened often. And it's like...
but isn't a barbaric thing that happened?
But that is such a reflection of... It just shows that humanity, we have been this way. We love gladiators. We love public shaming. Public hangings were a thing in the past. They're a thing in other countries today. Yeah. Wow, we're getting real political real quick.
Well, you guys think you can bring up like anti-maskers and shit without, but yeah.
But it just shows our human nature, and we are animals.
Well, you know, it's an interesting point though, because like I've heard people characterize, like when people would go to public hangings or like things like that, like they would, you know, everybody in town would go down to the square where they were hanging the person or whatever, chopping off their head, or part of it was obviously the human like drive to see suffering, retribution, anything like that, but
and see something surreal, like out of the norm. You know.
Well, it was like something to do. At a time when there wasn't stuff to do.
When
so
it's like,
if you think about it like that, of like it's just an activity, you could think about all this shit going on,
and if it's normalized in your culture and it's just a thing,
that just happens. It's like an inevitable thing that happens.
But nobody imagines themselves as the person.
Of course not. Well, I mean, like I guess you could be, but it's like maybe I've brought this up before, of like how like church, like going to church on Sundays, like was, you know,
a communal.
It was something you do as part of your own practice, but also would just be like, that was what was happening on Sundays that everybody would go to. So if you think about it like that, the like public shaming and the whole political performance that goes on these days is almost like a way for people just to like participate in something, and not even like a way for them to like really voice anything of their own. It's just like, oh, I want to be a part of this. This is what's going on. I guess I want to be a part of this.
And it's a bit hypocritical because everybody has their own things in their own lives that, you know, if you put a microscope on anybody, there are things from almost literally, maybe not you, because you and Clem are fucking saints.
No,
but
nobody's exempt.
But if you put a microscope on anybody's lives, there are things that people, you know, they themselves wouldn't be proud of, but and the rest of the world would just be like, you're a garbage person.
Right.
And it's like, let's flip that microscope on you. Let's see what you got, you know. Yeah. But anyway, we're a long way.
That was very biblical what you just said, though.
What?
Let him without sins cast
the first stone. Yeah. But that's very true. And oh man, we're going so deep already. Again, I believe there are very tenable, I don't know if I'm using that word, truths in the Bible. But it wasn't real. Anyway. Okay.
I don't know that.
Anyway, okay, so back to my grandma. So our flight was delayed, and then my cousin is usually the translator. So I'm actively using Google Translate. There's a Google Translate app that's specifically for that. And also you can press the mic and have a conversation. We didn't get that far because every time I would put the microphone to her, she'd be like, really, bro? Really? How about you grow up and learn some fucking Spanish for your grandma? It's like,
fair point.
Fair point. Valid. Valid. But it was crazy because the flight that we just barely fucking missed due to those fuckheads, to an outsider, I must have looked ridiculous because my grandma is a hardcore lady. So she's like, get us to this flight. And so it's also kind of cool because flying with her is like flying with a celebrity because she's in a wheelchair, and wheelchair people get privilege pass to everything. You skip all the lines, you do everything, you get on the plane first. Sure, yeah. So I can only imagine. I haven't flown in probably over 10 years. Getting through those TSA lines and baggage checks and all that stuff, that's a bitch, bro. That's a fucking... We got there 3 hours early for every flight, and it was still a long process. I can't imagine how fucking early you have to get there if you're going through the whole process. But anyway, I looked like a crazy person because I was wheelchairing my grandma, essentially sprinting through the... I was like, just fucking wailing through the fucking airport. Yeah. And there was even bumps, so it'd be like, you know those... You seen Ferris Bueller's Day Off? Yeah. You know when the principal's like sprinting, and then when he passes a classroom window, he slows down. Oh, and he sprints, and then he slows down. There's these little speed bumps throughout the airport, so I had to be like, sprint, slow, bump, sprint, slow, bump. Yeah. So finally made it. But on to the trip, that place is fucking beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. Very beautiful. And we FaceTimed a little bit while I was there. And it's just a drastically different lifestyle, and it's very community oriented. It's like me and my aunt were talking earlier today, and it's like everybody there will say hi anytime you're passing a person. They're like, buenos dias, buenas noches. Like everybody's saying hi. And then there's a lot of personal storefronts, so it's like within any, at least in the poor actually no, in every community we went through, the neighborhoods had their local stores, and often the times they had the name of whoever was the woman of the household, because typically they ran it. It's a very old school lifestyle kind of thing where it's like the men go out and work, the women stay at home, but then the women also have their own personal business that they're running. So there'd be like Tienda Isabella, and it'd be like Isabella's store, you know.
Do you get the sense at all that this is like a natural evolution of their own economy, or do you feel like there's some imposition of like, this is how, I don't know, like, do you feel any Western influence in that model? Because I mean, it sounds almost, I can't think of an analog now, or I can't even say like that's what America used to be like or anything like that.
I don't know. I think I don't even know that it's American, and maybe America or the U.S. They get my family gets offended when you call the U.S. America, because they're Central America, so they're technically America. They're actually America. But I think also the U.S. is just a natural evolution of what humanity just does. Because I was talking.
I don't think that's true.
I think do you think if countries such as El Salvador weren't as impoverished, do you not think they would seek the same heights as people do in the U.S.?
I think there are many paths. It's like evolution. There are many ways to get to the same spot.
True. Yeah.
And it doesn't have to all look like that. And I think that's the conceit of the Western man, and I'll say the Western man, is that we have reached the height of civilization. And it is a height.
That is gross.
It's a height. It's a height for sure, but it's not the height.
Yeah.
There are other ways of life that can get to this.
But I talked to a person native to El Salvador, and we actually did a podcast, so we're gonna have to release that soon. I am gonna have to offload some of the episodes for you. Because there's so much.
I'm still down to do every other one or whatever.
But he was saying it was sprung out of necessity. It's like things became so hard that people just had to fend for themselves and do anything they could to keep going. And so naturally, a lot of people just created their own stores. And there's a lot less barriers over there. It's like you don't need a fucking permit. You don't need infrastructure, whatever. These people were literally doing it out of their household. And it's kind of crazy because all of the doors in El Salvador have their 2-part doors. They've got the main door that closes, or they've got a screen door that closes and then a main door behind it. And then you can open up the main door so that you can sell through your screen door because, theft and whatnot. Sure. But it's really cool because if you ever need anything at any time, you don't need to go and drive through to an actual store, because there's also not a lot of real stores in any given distance. But it also bolsters community because everybody knows people at that store. There's like 2 per block, and anywhere you go, there's like a little store. You need toilet paper, you need cookies, bottled water. And that's another thing. Everybody drinks bottled water over there because they don't have a healthy water system. Clean water. But yeah, and it's just beautiful. I talked to you about how I went to my grandfather's land. And that was kind of a spiritual experience for me.
Sure.
Because, so for backstory for people who don't know, man, I probably will edit in some footage.
I think you should.
Yeah. There are many spots that are historical to my family. And one of the spots was where it was a church in El Congo, the main place we stayed, which was a very poor community, probably one of the poorest. And there was a big church there. And at that church is actually where my family quasi lived for a little bit, like at the church, like on the parking lot area. They set up a little, essentially was like a makeshift shack. Yeah. And my grandma would sell fruit and vegetables outside of that shack. And then that's the spot where my grandpa was kidnapped and during the Civil War, and he was kidnapped and never seen again. And then eventually they got word that he was put in a mass grave, which was common during the Civil War. Jesus. And it's literally just dig a big pit, throw a bunch of bodies there. Really dark. But the spiritual, the real, and it's nice now because there's a memorial there for him, which was beautiful, and I'll put that up too. But the real spiritual aspect was there's a plot of land in San Jose, and that's where my grandfather had his like coffee plantation. And it's crazy. I've told you this many times, but on one plot of land, They grow mangoes, coconut, corn, peppers, limes, native vegetables to El Salvador, isote, and a bunch of. But it just blew my mind that that's not a thing in the U.S. It's like that was his land that he just lived on, his property.
Right, yeah.
And it's so lush and green over there, and that people can just grow anything on their land.
Yeah.
And they were literally like cutting off mangoes and coconuts, chopping them with a machete and opening them up and just giving to. Okay, and then this is another. Sorry to.
No, you're
but
good.
I have a picture that I'll put up. We had this bowl of soup, and it was so fucking good, and everything in the soup, chicken, corn, various other vegetables, it was all grown on the land, and it was the most delicious soup ever. It's like that's something we're just out of touch with in the U.S.
Yeah.
Unless you live on a farm.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say because like honestly, like what has like kind of made me be able to even picture that sort of thing was the work I've been doing on the farm up at Green Bluff lately, and it's just crazy to see on a small plot of land. So I was helping out at a family farm up there, and on a small plot of land, how you can grow so many different things.
Yeah.
But not only that, you can grow a small amount of these things, or like have a small amount of plants or
as
of these
needed.
crops, but then like you create such abundance with even that small amount to the point where you're selling it, you're giving it away.
Yeah.
Like you can't even like get
There's
it all
no
off.
way you could
You can't get it
consume
off the
all of
tree.
that.
Yeah. Before some of it
Before it
goes
goes bad. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just like that. It's insane that you can like, there is such abundance of that sort of thing. And like to even like have experienced that kind of thing and knowing that was here in Spokane, in the US, like, and that's not the norm at all. Like people here don't know how to, like, imagine what you could do if you had just a couple fruit trees and a small garden.
And that's why you guys kind of were thrown off by I said that. It's like, if we're going to have trees, we want to have fruit trees. And it's like, that's not what trees are for, first of all. That was your guys' reaction. But
that's not the only thing trees are for.
No, yeah. But if you're going to have trees, if you're going to have a personal property, why not grow apples and peaches and whatever you can on that land?
You know what I think part of it is that you have to, it takes a while for a tree to really become mature. Yeah. To like really produce year after year. And sometimes your tree, like my mom has a peach tree in her backyard.
Is it taken over by?
That like, it just hasn't been, it wasn't kept up well. So the branches kind of grew out too much. And right now it's in a state where it's kind of fallen over and I don't know if it will
recover.
Yeah. So it's like you also need to tend to them, and it's like people don't really know how to do that, or keep them.
We went over to the Montgomery house, the one I'm trying to buy for the Snap video, and we've always had an apple tree and a peach tree. And then I went there and I was like, there's a second apple tree there, and I was like, I've never seen that. And they're like, well, it's obviously been here because it's
a tree.
It's bearing it's bearing fruit. Not only is it a tree. And I was like, well, that's crazy.
A full on,
yeah. But it was just a bummer because we had this peach tree that was there for the entire upbringing, my entire upbringing. And then there's so many kids that have lived there throughout the years that are all just like, let me break this branch. Let me put a swing on it. And it just and eventually my uncle just chopped that shit down.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, so the spiritual aspect of going to that land, which was very beautiful, and I told you about this, was that I got to sit under a tree that my grandpa, who, like I said, I never met because he was killed before my family even got here. But I was standing under the tree that he used to work at.
Right.
And it felt like, and the word ghost is kind of gross. When you're talking about a family member, it's
again,
like,
use the word poetically and not scientifically.
Yeah. But it felt like I was standing next to my grandpa. Right. I knew that that was his livelihood, living there and working on that land.
Like you can say for sure you don't live on a land like that. I bet with the same tree being there, you don't live there without having sat under that tree.
No,
right?
Yeah, most definitely. Like, and it was that tree was a little poetic to me because after my family left, so many people were encroaching on that property. People were bringing cows by to feed on the land, and so it was just the land was decimated. I don't know if that's the right word. But everything was just destroyed. And so it took my grandmother going back and hiring lawyers and property managers to get back that land and take back her property. And not only that, they had to replant all of the vegetables and stuff that were there in the past. But that tree, it was such a big full tree. The people that manage the property and who live on there now, and my grandma's like a saint. The family that lives on there now is a family that was homeless. They have 6 kids and 2 parents, and an earthquake destroyed their house. Damn. And so they were homeless. And so my grandma, in trying to recover that land, she had a house built there, and she said that family could stay there as long as they upkeep that land in my grandfather's name. Mm-hmm. Where was I going with that? Yeah, I don't know. But so essentially all of that land.
Were you talking about your ghost or your grandfather?
Yeah, but...
I mean, I don't know. I think that's a really good point. I know I've said this to you before already, several times off camera, but I think it's worth saying just that bit about how time, we think about time as like this unbreachable barrier, but it's just, again, another like vector in our experience of the world. And like I remember when someone first described to me like time as this, just basically a different measurement, right?
Yeah.
I was working at the movie theater in Bellingham, and this other guy I worked with, like, they're like, he really loved film, and we talked to like about time travel stuff and whatnot. Mm-hmm. But he like kind of just said it like, if you think about time as basically like another kind of spatial element, so like
thinking of it as a physical thing,
right,
really helps.
Yeah, and it's just like it's the same place. It's like it's just a measurement of change, essentially, right? So in some weird way, it's hard to obviously think about it, but it's like you are in the same place as your grandfather. Yeah. Same. You're just separated by.
I could have literally been standing exactly, and probably was. If you think about all the years he was on that property, I could have been exactly standing in the same place. And the only thing separating us from interacting was just the time that was just elapsed. Yeah. Right. I used to think about that for the house on Montgomery, and there was always some weirdo put those lick and tattoos that you put on. Somebody put one on a fence post. It was a JJ the jet plane one. And it was there for no joke, 15 to 20 years. And I remember as a kid looking, I was like, oh, that's so cool. And then I got to like 18 years old, and I was standing over it, and I was like, this is a trip. Because it's like, it's been there forever. Like, it's just been there. Time's a weird, trippy thing.
Yeah, it's like that's that. If these walls could talk, right? It's like they've been here.
Kendrick Lamar. Yeah. I think Kendrick Lamar's talking about pussy, but if these walls could talk. But
I think that's a saying outside of that as well. But yes.
Yeah. Well, he's got this line like, walls keep telling me to go deep, and like something about wet and all this stuff.
Oh. Yeah. But I do think that on your trip, there was a switch for you of like enjoying being there and then a wanting to come back. Right?
Yes. And I think that was sprung from a little bit of discomfort. Also, can you move that, angle it this way a little bit? The speaker, it's been bugging me. I think it sprung out of the discomfort. So like my uncle was essentially like my tech guy while I was there from over here. Over there, he was like updating us on our travel plans and the flight delays and all that stuff. And he was like, he's got an accent. So he's like, when we're there, we're not going to do any of this charity bullshit. We're going to go there and have fun. And I'm like, okay. But my grandma does go there with a philanthropic mindset of like, I want to help my people. Sure. And she wants to keep the memory of her husband, who's from all accounts just a beautiful, amazing person.
Do you have pictures of him?
Yeah, and I can show you after we're done. But there's very few because it was 45 years ago or something.
I mean, I think the fact that it's very few, I think you should keep those alive. Just hearing the story from you and everything like that, it's like it's very important that I don't know if those have been digitized. Not that like they need to be, but just they should just be held with some regard.
We have some copies of them, and one of these days I'm going to do a full. Once I get all the interviews with my family, we have so much documentation of getting here because we're going on a tangent. When my family came here, it was during the Civil War and during a lot of like civil rights things going on in the U.S. and so many people were being deported because a lot of people were coming here from war-torn countries, like my family. My grandma came here and single-handedly, on her own, like a 45, 50-year-old lady, brought her and her 9 kids and then 3 of her grandkids. So like, what is that, 12 people on her own to another country. And they have stories, man, of like getting chased by dogs, spotlight helicopters, hiding in bushes, sleeping under a bench at the immigration office, unbeknownst to them. They were like sleeping there. And then this lady said, "Do you know where you are?" And they were like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. We'll leave. And she's like, "No, I don't care about that. You're at the immigration office. If they catch you here, they will deport you." They were sleeping under a bench at the office. Jesus. And so when they got here, they literally, what is it called when, not sanctuary, what is it called when you're holding on to people and like not letting anybody get at them? There's
like what a church would do?
I guess sanctuary.
I think it is like a sanctuary type.
Yeah. Thing. So my uncle, who is an amazing person, my only white uncle, basically, St. Anne's Church brought them in and said, "We're not letting anybody touch you." Mm-hmm. And so my uncle, he was very in the like activist movement back then. He's a bit of a hippie. Him and a group of other people built an entire housing structure underneath, I think it's called a rectory. I could be wrong. That might be the back of a church. But there's a I think house.
That's like the office part of the church.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
But there's a house that priests live in, so that they're in their congregation, and they can literally, he just walks out of the house, goes and does the mass. So underneath that building, they built a living structure, and unbeknownst to the government, my family lived there for 4 years in hiding. Yeah. Until they were finally did all the legal paperwork and got their green cards. Yeah, my every aunt and uncle. And so she's just, my grandma's a fucking saint. And so when she goes back there, she tries to keep the memory of my granddad alive, and also he still has living relatives there, like his sisters and whatnot, who I met, and they're all in their 90s, little old ladies. And so she tries, she's not a person who needs much in life. So when she goes there, she stays with the poor people, and that's where we stay. And so this goes back to my kind of wanting to be back and still trying to appreciate my time there. It was just, like I told you, uncomfortable. And the living conditions. And I tried to be like, humble yourself. Don't be this piece of shit dude coming from the US, like, oh, this is dirty. This is like, but as I've told Alex a bunch of times, the shower situation. It's literally, so how it works is, and I've already explained this to you, but for our audience, everybody showers with rainwater. And so it rains aggressively, like every other night. Beautiful, amazing lightning and thunder,
big old
and
raindrop,
and just gumball sized raindrops. And so what they do is they collect water reserves, and then from that water reserve, it links to a shower system, which just build a fucking shower. Like, just get a shower head. That's all you need. But anyway, so they would take from the reserves, it would go into this little nozzle, and it would drip down into a barrel. And then from that barrel, they would put it in a large bucket. And then from that large bucket, they had smaller buckets. And from those smaller buckets, they had bowls. And so to shower, and it's crazy, because I would hear people shower, how accustomed they are to it. And it would just be, poosh, 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 and they would just shower. For me, because the water's ice cold, it would be like slowly pouring it and like trying to scrub myself and like here, and just like, it was so jarring. And then the light situation, they have like the energy saver lights.
Right.
And there would be one for the whole main of the house, and they're very dim. So like the light is very dim. I'm sleeping on a mat on the floor because my grandma and my aunt took the beds. And then the shower situation, it's like ice cold water. And so, yeah, it was just a bit uncomfortable the whole trip. It's very hot there and humid, and so you're a little bit sweaty all the time. And then also there's so much, it's so impoverished there. There's not a lot of opportunity. And so being over there, I was like, I'm so grateful for the opportunity that I have in the US.
But what opportunity is it specifically that you're thinking about?
Well, the opportunity.
Because it's not like you're coming back and you're like, I'm about to be a venture capitalist.
Yeah. It was just, well, it was kind of, there were two answers, because it's like there's a piece that they have over there, where it's like, and I was very conscious of this, they don't feel like they always need to be doing something or they're a failure.
Sure.
And that's something that I have in my mind. Like
that's part of our culture.
Yes.
I don't know if people, I don't think some people think that's human nature, but I think it's a part of our culture.
No, it definitely is, because people there, like the people that live on my grandfather's land, and again, so they live there rent free, and I don't mean that pejoratively. But they take care of the land and keep my grandfather's memory land.
It's just their land. It's their place.
My grandma said when she was down there, she said, "This is my land, but it's your land." And she said, "This is our place." And she kind of tried to say, like, don't feel any kind of way about you living here. This is our place. And yeah,
do you get any sense of a government at all when you're there?
Not really, other than the police force.
Okay.
So I interviewed some people for a podcast, which we'll be releasing in a couple weeks. I think they were more conservative leaning, which it's weird to see that in a country like that. But of course, there's going to be, Yeah, of course, yeah. My grandma is a big fan of the new president there. But I also think she's a little bit naive in terms of who the guy actually is, a little bit ignorant to his actual policies. And the people I interviewed say he's kind of a shady guy. But the crime rate has significantly dropped since he's been president, because he put a military force on the streets. And so pretty much everywhere you'd go, you'd see guys, uniforms, bulletproof vests, and just a giant fucking gun like on their shoulder. Yeah.
I think this is like that kind of model of like, this is where I find myself having more libertarian kind of leanings, because like I in just like my own personal reflection of like how we should be able to live on this earth. Yeah. The whole like the fact that I can't just like live somewhere is like really, it's like hard for me to wrap my mind around.
The fact that you can't just buy a plot of land and do as you please.
Just like go to a plot of land and be like, nothing's here.
I'm gonna live here. And that's a place, I don't know if it's like in Norway, there is a country where you can do that. If there's nobody living on that land currently, you can just set up shop and that's where you live.
Right. Yeah.
And there's some freedom to that, which we definitely don't have.
And it just seems like a right as a human animal.
Yeah. But it also, it's like there is a finite amount of land. And so it's like eventually do you feel like all the land would be taken up? But at the same time, there are large organizations and wealthy people who take up gigantic plots of land because they have the means to. So yeah, I think I'm leaning towards more your point of view, where you should just be able to go somewhere and be left alone.
I think like that's like a nugget of like, there's like a intuition of mine that should be the way it is,
a natural human.
But that leads to a lot of other beliefs that like I don't necessarily align with, but I have to like acknowledge, like there's the whole libertarian idea of like a complete freedom and I should be able to do what I want. And then at a certain point, there's like what happens when someone else claims the land I claim, and then it's like all, and then
you need an intermediary.
Yeah. And I don't believe that we should just all be fighting it out. So I mean, there's a lot to it, of course, but like just the idea like that, I don't know, it sounds like if they really do live rent free, that it's like it's not necessarily that the government owns the land.
No, they live rent free because my grandma pays for it.
I see.
So she does. She owns the land.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's another thing. So it's like my aunt was telling me that. So I had 3 aunts that were the sisters of my grandfather, and one of them recently passed away in the last 3-ish years. But the other 2, the remaining 2, surviving 2, one of them was living on the streets. She was homeless, and then the other one was living, and this my aunt's words, as a servant. And so she was living with this family and doing all the household work for them, and with the agreement that she would be paid, but apparently she wasn't paid for like 6 months, and she was just essentially being housed and given food, like the bare minimum. Yeah. And so when my grandma found that out, she's like, that's not cool. And so she started renting properties in her name for them, and now they live in certain areas. But the rent there, at least where the one we stayed, is $80 a month.
Wow.
It's like, very affordable from our standards.
Sure.
It's literally 10 times cheaper than or even cheaper than living somewhere in Spokane, even, or especially Seattle.
Yeah, and I think it's a weird global economic thing that like I probably can't really speak on. Yeah, and like there's probably a lot of implications, and this is where we just need to find some like an economist to talk to.
Yeah,
I would just love to like see their picture of the world.
Yeah,
it's hard for me to like think about the world in anything other than the like simple rational terms of like how I think it should be, you know, because there's a lot of reasons why things are the way they are. And
but so one of the people I interviewed there, he was talking how there aren't a lot of mental health issues. People are pretty level-headed, and he said the drug issue is almost a non-issue. Like there's almost no drug abuse, and he said there's a little bit of weed passed around. But other than that, there's no like heroin addictions, opiate pill addictions. There are some alcoholics. You know, I saw some people who kind of congregated together and kind of staying on the street and just consistently drunk.
You know, I've been thinking a lot about and watching media lately, just the kind of the rampant and cultural mental health crisis that I feel like is happening in the culture. I don't know how much it has been going on for so long, and
it's almost turned into a joke. Like I'm so neurotic.
Right. And I think that like in some ways, like, you know, our kind of society breeds that sort of thing, or just like I don't know. I could talk about it in so many ways. I don't know how much we want to get into it, but it's like what Freud talks about in Civilization and its Discontents. Not that I've read it, but just like as an idea of like how civilization in the Western way of structuring it breeds that sort of thing. And then Jung said, like in his whole idea of like psychology and personality, of like what each person's like self-actualization, self-individuation, the path is that we all end up, because of our place in society, in our specific society, we end up being super specialized in the way we think, even just in our personality. So certain people are certain temperaments, people are another temperament, and the goal is to reach the end of that, like see how far that individual mindset gets you, and then come back to a balanced way of being. And I think someone asked him,
is that a good or bad thing?
To what?
To do that?
Well, he says for us, for Western people, that is the path we should be going toward, because we end up basically being thrown into this state of like, man, I think in such a way, like such a different way than other people. And the goal is to like kind of find the productive end of that and then return to a more holistic, balanced way. And I think either he explained or someone asked him, like, does that balanced way exist anywhere in the world? And he said that it exists most in the very primitive tribal cultures. Those people tend to have a very like balanced functioning of themselves. So they have a, you know, for him, it's a thinking side, a feeling side, a, you know, like sensory side and an intuitive side. And they're all very balanced because they kind of do everything they need to. Whereas we only have to do, like, I can pick one thing I'm good at and have all my needs met doing that one thing. Right. And people who have to kind of do all of it.
And we're very detached from all the things that make us human, which are like the survival mode things, which is like, you know, planting, agriculture, hunting, housing.
And again, that's just like one aspect of it, right? Like that's why I feel like the Western thought is that we have reached a pinnacle of like intellectual, you know, whatever heights. But like, that's just because we have basically overplayed one of our hands and we need to like balance it out.
It was very weird. The family that lives on my grandfather's land, they're so kind. But it was just interesting that, you know, like their shower is behind their bathroom, and essentially they both function on the same water and the same processes. Like to flush, you pour the water into the toilet. Their cooking means were like they had this designated area where they build a fire and then they put the pot over that, and they but it's like very a natural lifestyle, very simplistic. But I felt weird, like just this American dipping my toes in and taking a peek into what your life is like. And now I'm going to go back to the comforts of my home and thinking that they're still there right now. And that's, they're living their life, you know, living off the land and having very, for what we would call a simplistic lifestyle. But
how does it make you feel about their life and then your life? And
I don't know. I feel like I would be a lot less stressed out if I lived their lifestyle Like the pressure to be something would be alleviated. But at the same time, this is something we've talked about. It's like the grass is greener on the other side. Like I'm sure they would gladly, with open arms, accept the comforts that we have, like a reliable roof over your head, a shower, warm water, a stove, all of that stuff. So yeah, I guess finding a middle ground would be really hard. But they do seem less plagued by the neuroses that most of us have.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. But
yeah, I mean, you're talking about just like vacationing. This makes me think about kind of this idea that I've been sympathetic to, and I've heard it like in a couple different. I don't know where I first heard it. I feel like I first read it somewhere, but then it's also in this song by this band Parquet Courts of like, basically like we shouldn't be trying to like travel to experience things so much. Like there's so much to experience where you are. Like we should really just be understanding the world around us. And I think it's a little different for you because you have connections somewhere else, and it's different than like me going to South America or me going to Africa or even me going to Europe to be like, oh, like I'm being cultured and learning things about this place. It's like, what are you really learning about your life in a place where you're not living at all, you know?
But I do think there's something to traveling to other countries and experiencing those things, because I don't know, our view is pretty myopic in the US, and we have our standard way of doing things and existing.
But this is where, and I don't know if we want to get into this, but this is where I feel like when we start comparing ourselves to other countries, we start validating the ills of our own society. Like if we say that like, man, look how terrible it is in North Korea or some other country, like just be happy. Sure, you're poor, but just be happy that you're not there. Yeah. And it's like if you were someone who went and just like if you took a vacation, not, I mean, like I don't know, like the way you took a vacation, to a place in the U.S. that is more impoverished.
Weird, the term vacation. It didn't feel like a vacation.
Yeah. I don't think for you it was because of the connection you have. The connection, you know?
But I think people's idea of vacation is like go to the Bahamas, chill, sip Mai Tais by the ocean or the lake or whatever.
Well, and that's where maybe in the English, the proper English way of saying, they say holiday. And like for them, it is a celebration of sorts, maybe, you know? And like
go to hospital, go to holiday or whatever. Those fucking weirdos.
But I think like, the idea like that you're traveling with a sense of purpose. Yeah. And I don't mean the like charity sense of purpose. I mean the like really experiencing sense of purpose.
Your history.
Is different. And I think there's so much to be learned about our world where we live that I feel like certain people don't acknowledge.
But is there though?
Yes, I do. I really do think so.
It's I think about how much there is to experience even in our own city. And I don't.
Sure.
You know?
Sure, yeah.
Like it's go to work, be so exhausted from work, go home, sleep it off. It's like the song, everybody's working towards the weekend or working for the weekend. It's like 5 days a week, you slug it through there. You're praying for Friday. Friday comes, you're so exhausted by the week, you're just like, I'm not going to do anything. And then you just kick back the weekend, and then the cycle repeats, you know, and it's just that life. Yeah, and I think so many people I think live that life,
and I think that's
my dad does.
Not to be all like, I don't even know what this is. I think that's the structure that I'm just gonna use this term. And I don't mean this in like I'm not an anti-capitalist. The capitalist structure of society is that you go to work, you put your labor in, you get your money out, you use the money for recreation, which feeds back into the system, and it's just this loop. But I think we've talked this before in terms of like going to bars or going out and meeting people. Yeah. Like I think like I am just so interested in other people's lives because it's almost maybe this like vicarious living type thing of like I want to know what it's like to live a different life than my own life. Yeah. You know, so when I meet somebody that's like just lives a different life, whether or not it's, you know, better, worse, and I mean that like in the like if they're richer or poor or just I find that weird or I would never live that life. It's a different mode of living that I just find very interesting. It's like it's like I'm experiencing someone from a different culture, even if they live in the same. Even I meet them at the local.
But when
bar,
you think about that, do you think about people who live like? So the first thing that comes to mind is like a homeless individual.
Sure.
You know, like I I had the most weird, surreal feeling this morning on my way to my aunt's house. I was driving in my car, and I noticed I could see my breath, and I was like, fuck, here it comes. Here comes the shit weather, the fucking cold ass weather. It's already starting in fucking August. And as I'm sitting at a stoplight thinking that to myself, and I turn on the heat, and as the heat goes, my breath visually goes away because the heat's in the air. And then I look to my left, and there's a homeless person sitting on the street.
Sure.
And I'm like, all it did for me to grant myself comfort was just turn the knob. It's warm now.
Yeah.
And that person is,
Yeah. What does that make you
living
feel?
on the
I don't
street.
know.
Well, it was just like, quit bitching, like, and I know you can't always take that term, and your feelings are your feelings.
Sure. Yeah. I'm not thinking about it like that. I'm not. That wasn't my immediate thing to say to you when you were saying that.
No, but that's what but it's like, what's their version of that? It's probably a lot worse. Like, the winter's coming.
Yeah. I think we're venturing
winter
into that.
is coming.
I think we're venturing into that pity realm again, where I don't feel like it's very helpful.
Yeah.
I don't like the argument ever of suck it up because people have it worse off than you. Because I don't know. There's something about that I dislike.
Yes. And it's a never ending ladder.
Yeah.
Like, you could say that from any.
Right. Yep.
Like, you could go to that homeless person and say that exact same thing.
Yeah.
There's somebody in a
At least
third
you don't
world
have
country.
cancer. I don't know. Or,
Yeah.
Or at least you live in North Korea.
At least you don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
At least
Right.
I see what you're saying now.
It just feels like it doesn't. And I'm not saying this like in a appreciate your life type of way. I'm just saying it in just like a. I don't know. I guess I don't know how it connects up to what we were just saying, but like when I meet, so I was out for a run the other day, and I was running just around the city, and ended up running down by Gonzaga, and I'm listening to music or whatever, and then some guy on the side of the street comes up to me and is like, hey, like, and I'm somebody who always, if somebody's trying to get my attention, I stop and I listen to what they're trying to tell me. And he was just like looking for directions to a shelter place. And I was like, okay, like this is where I am now. Like this guy is going through some stuff. Like, and I happen to be the one here at this moment. Like, let me just engage in this. And, he was like trying to get to the shelter, but like couldn't really find his way. And like, he had no sense of like where it was in relation to where he is. And
did you know where it was?
I had actually passed it on my run. I didn't know that it was a shelter.
And you
it was
dirty bastard, you sent him in the opposite direction.
It was the Union Gospel Mission, the men's shelter.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I think it's back the way.
That's on Mission, right?
It's on, I think so.
Right close to Division, right?
No, it's like near like Nevada.
Oh, okay.
Kind of like where Nevada goes over to the freeway. Anyway, I had passed it, and I'm pretty good at like noticing things and like kind of banking it in my mental map of where things are. So I'm like, I think I just passed it back that way, but I'm not sure. I can look it up. And he's like, oh, no, shit, I just came from that way. I went that way. I don't want to go back that way. I'm like,
can I stay with you?
I'm like, okay. No. That's not what the thing is. Like, not everybody's trying to get shit from you.
Yeah.
This guy just needed help. So I looked it up and I'm like, oh, that is the place.
Yeah.
I mean, he was trying to describe to me like, there's fencing around it because like if you don't get there by a certain time, you can't come in and all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, like I don't know exactly what you're talking about, but like this is what I'm seeing. Like this, I think it's that way. I looked it up. This is the men's shelter. You got to go back that way, the way I came. Yeah. He's like, I'm not going back that way. I already went that way.
Wow.
Yeah, he was just kind of over it, and he's like, I think I'm just gonna find a place to sleep. Like on the side of the road. And he like had a spot at the shelter. He's like, I just got to get there by 8:30 to keep the spot. But like, honestly, at this point, I'm just going to like go.
How far was it?
Spot. It was maybe half a mile or something.
Come on, bro.
Well, I mean, dude, he's just like, I just want to lay down. I just want to I have tried already, and he'd asked a couple people. He's like, I asked somebody and they told me this way and I couldn't find it and I didn't. So I don't know. I was just like, again, like he was just living his life. Yeah. Right. And like he clearly has his own stuff going on. And I'm not about to be like, dude, just like go fucking that way.
Yeah.
Like don't like stop being like the you know. So I was like just trying to figure out, okay, like I was like, dude, if I had a car right now, I'd give you a ride there. But I don't have a car. Like I don't really know where the other shelters. Like I'm telling you, like this is what I know. And like that's all I can do for you. And then he was like, okay, well, I'm just like, thanks for helping. And I was like, well, let me look. He was like, I'm just going to keep going this way. I'm like, okay, well, let me look if there's a way this way that'll get you back over there.
How would that work?
I mean, so I looked it up and I was like, yeah, actually this road, if you keep going this way, take a left on this road and then follow that road, it will also get you to the same place.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, just go that way. Take a left when you get to the stoplight. Yeah. It'll lead all, because I knew that road.
And what did he say?
He was like, okay. You know, it's like, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know if he got there.
Yeah.
But it's like, I just feel like I encountered him on his
So what
level.
are your whole thoughts around this
I guess my whole thoughts is like, this is a whole other life this guy is living. I just try to like, I don't know, experience it where it comes into contact with me. Yeah. And like, just like, I don't know, again, like engage with it where it is, and I don't know, just take it in. Like I'm not.
Well, we've
I mean, obviously, like I would like to help him more, but I don't like pity him. Like it's like I don't think me like, here's a whole bunch of money. I don't think that is helping me or him at all. And
but I do think a topic we've touched on quite a bit is like when I think about my sister and the life she lives on a daily basis, and it's like she has two modes: being on drugs or spending the rest of her day finding those drugs. And it's like that lifestyle is so alien to me.
Sure.
And it's like, you know, that's her life, like for the past couple years. Right, like that's her whole being is like that every day.
But imagine that as a culture unto itself.
Yes. So that's what I was just going to transition to, which is like, we're on our kind of own rat race, which is like, do something if you're not doing something, you're lazy or you're wasting time, and then like be successful. If you're not successful, you're like neurotic about how you're a failure in life. And then on the flip side of that is like people in El Salvador who are just living their life on a daily basis. Yeah. It's like, but anyway, we got on many tangents, but
I think it was good.
Yeah, it was a good episode. That's the episode, guys.
Thanks for having us back.
Yeah. Catch us for the next one.
Yeah.
Cue music. You did that for a couple